Hello and welcome to Moonshot, a show by Peak 15 that profiles innovative startups and inspiring founders who are dreaming big, making an impact, and driving change across the region. I'm Dewi Fabri, and throughout this podcast series, we'll be introducing you to founders and thought leaders who are helping shape the region's startup ecosystem. We hope this podcast will give you fresh ideas on how to start and scale an enduring company. A founder's journey can begin long before they leap into launching their first startup. Amrish Rau is one such founder. He spent over 2 decades in the FinTech industry and now serves as the CEO of Pine Labs. But before that, he launched CitrusPay, which was acquired by Naspers PayU in 2016. On this episode of Moonshot, Amrish speaks with Peak 15's Shailendra Singh to share his journey shaping digital payment gateways in India, why he made specific company building decisions, and why the key to building a great team lies in enjoying each other's company. This conversation was recorded at Surge, our seed platform for company builders.
I'm thrilled here to have Amrish Rau. Amrish is currently the CEO of Pine Labs. We work very closely together. It's one of my favorite companies. I've been on the board for 13 plus years, so very special. But before that, in his prior life, Amrish is a founder, and we backed his startup. This is his second major gig with us. He founded a company called Citrus, which we will talk about. But Amrish's story is super, super interesting. We have this classic debate that, people with pedigree and credential and past background and so on. And Amrish and I were just chatting about his college days. Amrish, let's start there. Talk about maybe your growing up years, childhood. When were you playing tennis? But tell us a little about the early years.
So Shailendra, I don't know where to start with the journey, right? I think the first part of the journey which I'll say is that both my parents were bankers. Father worked with Bank of Baroda, mother worked with UCO Bank. These are government banks in India. And we had a great life, right? We had a great life growing up. I wasn't as intelligent as Shailendra is. We went through, one of the great schools in Bombay. Of course, all of you have heard of Shah and Anchor, Kachi Engineering College. That's where I went to.
Okay. I'm not exaggerating. I knew that he had gone to a local Mumbai college. I only heard the name this morning for the first time.
But, just back to it, I think to a great extent, sport played a very important part in my life. So, Shailendra talked about the tennis right now. And he actually commented one day, he said, whenever you're on court, you're like super competitive. I think it started very early. So I used to play table tennis. Then I used to play a lot of snooker. During the college days, it was all about hustling and trying to get your snooker game right. I would love to say I went to Kota, I went to IIT. I would love to say I fought my way through that, but we had a different fight, which was on the snooker table, trying to make everything happen. And then Shailendra, what I have to say, I got very, very lucky. So I have an elder brother, and elder brother is almost 7 years elder, so he's like one generation ahead of me. And I was dropping him one day to his office, and he used to work for Siemens. And just outside his office, there was a new board, a company called Siemens Nixdorf. And I said, what's this company? He said, well, it does something in technology. I said, can you send my CV out here? So this is my college days are over. I didn't have a job. So he sent my CV there. They gave me a job for 3 months as an intern. It was paying me 2,500 rupees per month, which I thought was great. I thought it was like...
It is, at today's exchange rate is $30 a month.
Yeah. As the first job, the job I had was, and some of you won't remember, in those days, if you go to a bank, you had a passbook wherein you could get your transactions. The printer for that work was a specific printer. And my job was to take that printer to all the banks in the country and ask them to integrate their banking software into my printer. But long story short, that was my entry into financial services technology. I used to look into transactions, which used to come on a passbook printer, but that's where I learned going to banks, speaking with bankers, understanding what drives them. I learned a lot in that job. I got super lucky. In 3 months' time, I had closed my first order, and because of that first order, I got confirmed in Siemens. And since then it's been a great journey. I never felt the urge actually to go to an MBA school because I thought like I had a great job. But more interestingly, now it's been 25 years. In 25 years, I've done 21 years in financial services technology. So there is not much in that area that I will turn around and say, hey, I don't know what you're talking about.
So Siemens, how long did you last at Siemens?
So, I spent 2 years with Siemens. Then I got hired by the number one competition, which was NCR, which is an American company. Spent 7-8 years with NCR. And then spent another 7-8 years actually being employee number one for First Data Corporation. Right. First Data was one of the world's largest payments company. They were looking to set up in India. They reached out to me. They hired me. I've been super lucky in my life. So
you had a long entrepreneurial run there, basically.
I was just going to say that. Yeah. I was super lucky that even in NCR, Shailendra, my second part of NCR, I actually ran the data warehousing and CRM business. So there it was completely software platform. So as I said, 21 out of 25 years I did FinTech, but those 4 or 5 years I actually built a data warehousing, CRM, business intelligence platforms in the Indian market, learned completely new skills around software and being able to deliver software in the market. And then I took over as employee number one for First Data. Again, went back to what I loved in payments. And just around 2011, let me tell you my story about how I got to know Sequoia. So Sequoia used to call me and ask me saying, hey, we are looking to invest into this company. You corporate honcho, do you want to give us some advice about, what should we do? Yeah, we would
call him for references, like should we invest in something or not?
Exactly, right? So I was the person that they used to call up for some conversation. So I used to, go connect with them, spend a lot of time. But as luck would have it, when I was ready for entrepreneurship, Sequoia was just one call away. The term sheet I had was at 600K. I talked it up to $1 million and Sequoia came back with a term sheet of 1.8 million. And I went back and I asked the question, I said, why did you give me 1.8? And what I got to hear actually changed my perspective on how VCs look at businesses. They said that, look, if I give you a term sheet at 1 million and if you fail, it doesn't help me at all. I give you a term sheet at 1.8 million, which I believe you require for an 18 months period. And if that 800K makes you successful, I'll be super happy. So I'm not going to try and cut corners and save 800K and $1 million. I believe the right amount for you is 1.8 million. Take this 1.8 million and build a company in the right way. I just found that to be a really interesting concept in my head, which is, the VCs are not trying to optimize for the money. What they are constantly trying to optimize is, do you have enough runway? Can you survive? Can you build a long-term company? And they will try and support you through that journey. So that was a big learning for me in my first venture. Anyhow, so that's when the relationship with Sequoia started.
How was the citrus journey? Talk a little bit about the citrus journey.
So when we started off with citrus, there was one thing that we knew, that the transacting device was going to move from a computer or a laptop to a mobile phone. And what Indians are going to require is a different experience on mobile. The technology behind for simple online payment transaction will be different for a mobile phone. And you need to build a company which is mobile first, rather than focusing on the laptop. So while we did payments, we also had mobile as a very important important thing to go after. At some point in time, we had become India's number 2 or number 3 payments platform. But the story about Citrus is not so much about the successes that we had, but much more about some very interesting decisions that we took. One, for example, we focused very deep on PMF over growth. So, it was very easy for us to turn around and say, I've built a classic payment gateway, which is ready for the laptop generation. And I could have shown significant growth in our business. What we did was we said, no, we want to go after the entire mobile space area. At that time, smartphones were still just taking off. So our growth was not exponential, but we knew our product was very, very strong and going after a very important segment. You will be challenged with that over the next few days, right? When you get to the next stage of raising money, you'll always have that doubt in your head which says, should I focus on PMF or should I focus on my growth metrics? Because what drives my next capital raise? Is it growth or is it PMF? And that's a tough decision, right? I don't want to sit here and tell you that weigh one over the other, but I decided in those days that we want to focus on PMF and get our product right rather than worry about growth and go after a technology which I felt was a crowded space. So that was something very important to remember. The second piece which we focused on in Citrus, which I talk a lot about, is knowing what is an input metric and what is an output metric. It's very confusing, by the way. What should be your input metric and what should be output metric? First of all, what we said was we run our business looking at the input metric. So at the stage at which you are, if you start to become focused on the output metric, I think you lose your way. Focus on your input metric and get your input metric right. Output will take care of itself over a period of time. Now, the challenge is knowing what is your input metric. Many companies actually don't understand. So some of the companies which I believe are high burn companies, they actually look at DAU/MAU as an output metric. DAU/MAU is an input metric as far as I'm concerned. Now, of course, it changes based on the sectors you go after. But if you focus on DAU and MAU as an input metric, and you know what your output metric is, you'll run your business in a completely different way. And the last thing in a lighter note, which I'll tell you about what I learned through the Citrus journey, is it is not interesting to turn around and tell everybody that, hey, I'm building a payment gateway for the mobile world. What you want to tell everybody is saying, you're building a payments platform for the new generation. What does that mean? Well, let me explain what that means. After 20 sentences, you get to the point which says that you're building a payment gateway for a mobile phone. I think that's very, very important. And Shailendra talks about this, about the whole piece around storytelling. But for me, where it is really easy to explain is, the more you talk about the higher goal and the higher mission that you're going after, the more you build your organization in that direction. If you build your organization to solve for payment gateway on the mobile phone, I think you will create a different company than saying, I really want to solve for the new generation's payment experience. Like if you look at Stripe actually says that what they are building is to increase the online GDP. That's what Stripe says. And that allows Stripe to go into completely new areas all the time. So as you build your business, constantly try and think for what is the higher goal that you're going after. Again, at the stage at which you're going to feel extremely uncomfortable about it and ask yourself, say, really, is this very cheesy? Honestly, the reason I bring this up is I went through that same question mark, right? Saying, how cheesy is it, and we are trying to create a frictionless checkout. Today, it's a very easy word to say, but to say that in 2013, saying a frictionless checkout, oh my God, that's a big word to say. But I learned this over and over again, that the more you challenge yourself, the more you make yourself uncomfortable, you obviously try and build your organization to meet up to that larger standard. So Citrus journey was fantastic.
Citrus was acquired by Naspers, and then you ran PayU in India for many years.
Yeah.
So Amrish first, you ran First Data, right? And then you ran PayU. In the middle, you had an entrepreneurial journey. So Amrish ran two big payments companies in India over his time there. And then also PayU, in fact, it's very interesting, when Naspers was buying Citrus, what they told us privately, and I think they had told you, of course, because they loved the Citrus business, but they said, oh, we need a leader for our India payments business. So they were actually buying the company, and they paid 140 million, 130 million. They were buying the company for somebody to lead in. They had already invested tons of money in India. Yeah. So they wanted a leader, and they wanted a team to lead. So it's very interesting sometimes. And then you guys successfully combined with them and then scaled it up further, many multiples, right? Like it could be 30, 40 billion.
We did. So I think the big number which stands out was the first month that I took over as the CEO of PayU, I remember I had just had sleepless nights because in the month we were losing 25 crores, which in those days were 4 million monthly burn is what we had. And in that 3 years period that I ran as a CEO of the company, we took that business to a positive of annual positive of 5 million is where we took the business in 3 years period. From a negative run rate of about let's say 50 million, we took it to a positive of 5 in 3 years period. But before I get there, let me talk about another piece, right, which is sale of citrus. So sale of citrus taught me many things. So like I told you, was both my parents were with the government. I had this hustle in me. So I had this statement that at the age of 40, I want to retire. I don't want to do anything at the age of 40. And when I sold the company, I have to tell you that my thinking process was, great, I don't need to work again ever in my life. And it's been such a eye-opener those 3 years after I sold the company. I realized a few myths, right? You don't build a company for money, ever. You just don't build a company for money. You always build the company for something much more important, which is passion, mission, the team that you have. There is something much more bigger which is driving you. And at least in my case, what I felt was as soon as I sold the company, while we had money in the bank, more important things, I completely lost it. So I felt extremely lonely. I found it extremely tough after I sold my business. That's one. The second is the whole concept around an exit party is a myth. I still haven't had my exit party of citrus payment. Literally, I haven't had that exit party even now. And I don't know how it is, right? The founder's DNA is different. The founder does not stop thinking in her head. The founder wants to go and do something new every day. So the party never feels like a party ever. So one thing which I will tell you is that, and I'm not trying to tell anyone saying, is an exit a right thing or exit is the wrong thing? Everybody is built differently. I'm just saying, don't get carried away with this big dream that exit is some sort of an utopia and life is going to change. Actually not. Life just becomes completely different. That's where, after I finished my 3 years with PayU, I came back begging to Sequoia, guys, please, can you please find me another startup which I can now do it? So I actually came back to Sequoia saying, fund me for my next venture.
Correct.
I'm trying to raise 20 million. Are you going to lead this? Sequoia said, yeah, whatever. Happy to lead your round. But you got to present to the IC. I said, okay, sure. I'm happy to present to the IC. Rajan was in the room. There's another guy called Amit was there. Shailendra was there. Rajan was asking me a lot of questions. Amit was asking me a lot of questions. Shailendra did not ask me any question in that room. He just heard the story about what I want to build. And what I really wanted to build was into offline payments. I really felt that payments industry is still in its nascent days. We haven't really started on the massive FinTech journey in India as yet. And I wanted to go and build out for small businesses, merchant, starting offline, online, presented my vision. Shailendra didn't ask me a question there. I came out of the meeting. Shailendra comes from behind and saying, hey, when you're on your flight back to Singapore, let me know when you land in Singapore. I want to have a chat with you. I had no clue what that chat was, right? And that chat obviously led to Pine Labs.
Yeah.
And it's been just fantastic last 3 years, getting re-engaged with Sequoia, building out Pine Labs, just been phenomenal.
So, I told you guys, right, I have this philosophy that a company can have a co-founder at any stage in its journey. Okay, the way I think about it is you can be $100 million revenue company. If somebody has a way to help you build a $2 billion revenue company, that person is your perfect co-founder for the next stage of the company's journey, And so I basically went to Amrish. I said, Amrish, you already built a company from scratch. Or do you want to be a co-founder in a company, that's worth a couple of billion or about to be worth, at least $1 billion or very close to $1 billion then. Yeah. When we were talking to Amrish, we were closing around 1.7 or 1.8 billion then, and said, do you want to build this company, be the co-founder for the next stage, take it public, help us build it, be a partner, with all of us. And Amrish was like, look, I was going to start a company, but this is an interesting idea. What if I don't start at ground zero? And as you can tell from the talk from Amrish, it was very high EQ, right? And so he understood where I was trying to go with it. And he didn't have this ego of saying, no, I want to be CEO of my own thing day one and so on. And we call this or we call that. And then we had a few chats after that. And one thing led to another. And Amrish said, look, this should be very clear. I'm not looking for a job. I wanted to start something. I want to be an entrepreneur. And I said, well, what if you can be an entrepreneur and, you are just, it's just like how it was, let's say, at Citrus or whatever, and you're empowered the same way. And so then he said, well, but I also then want to invest in the company because, I want to show skin in the game. Yeah. And he said, well, I'll invest money at $1.7 billion valuation. I was like, even better, that's great. So, this idea of all-in mindset, right? Like the idea of being, in your, having the founder's DNA, it can, people who have the founder's DNA, they will act like founders, even in situations where you would think that, oh, well, they're not the founder, and which is why when you guys can find, if any of you can ever find your Amrish, you must, it'll change your life.
What does Pine Labs do? So we basically over the years have been the market leaders in offline payments. We built our technology in such a way that we don't make money on MDR or as a fee from the merchant. We have a software stack in the cloud which allows many institutions to connect into our cloud infrastructure on one way. On the other side, we deliver all these services to merchant. We charge a SaaS fee to the merchant community for those transactions. Now, more the institutions which want to connect into the cloud and get access to the merchant's checkout, more money we make. So we charge the merchant, we charge brands, we charge financial institutions to get access to the checkout point. The second part of the business is we are now building out a very strong online payments platform. Third part of our business is we are one of the largest issuers of virtual accounts and prepaid accounts. This year we are on path to do 200 million plus in terms of net revenues, and the business continues to grow at about 50% year on year. Shailendra talks a lot about the basic concept around compounding. If you can compound a business at 30, 40, 50% for 10 years, honestly, you've created one of the best companies in the world. So built a company over 15 years. It's not a company which got created in 3 years or 5 years or 7 years. It's taken 15 years to build this company and to get it here.
Yeah, look, this is a rock solid business. I have some very funny anecdotes. Okay, when I first met Lokveer is the founder. When I first met him, he very proudly told me, with a slight chip on his shoulder, he said, we don't approach any customers. I said, like, wait, what do you mean? Like, you don't approach any customers? Like, is that a bad thing to approach customers? Like, you're a seller. He said, no, all customers come to us. Okay. This is a real story. We had a small company at the time, and they had very, very good insights on building a product stack that was ahead of the curve. That added more value to the ecosystem. And actually, Pine Lab had this multi-acquirer platform that was the first in the world. What it did is it changed how acquiring of merchants worked. And so if you understood what that meant, it meant that every merchant acquirer in the world, when they said, hey, I'm going to process your payment, had to put a terminal there. Pine Lab said, my terminal works with all acquirers. So I'm not a payment acquirer myself, but I'm a provider of a software platform. And over time, they were able to move that to the cloud, saying that I have this cloud-based platform. If you plug into me, you can process payments anywhere you like. I remember talking to Google about it. He said, oh, like, how is this possible that the ecosystem lets you do this? Like, I don't even believe that you can do this. I'm like, well, we've been doing it for 8 years. And this is what happens when you create a category. People don't believe that you can pull something off, but we had pulled it off, and we were already getting to some scale and compounding and so on. And that just kept going. And so it's very interesting. This was a company that had zero sales DNA. Okay, they prided themselves that they would not approach a customer. Customers had to come to them. It was only 3-4 years later that we actually built a sales team. This is a very good example of a company that had extraordinarily strong PMF, but had not figured out how to build a business around it yet. And they had these notions that, like, look like customers come to us.
And what Shailendra is saying is absolutely right. So the idea was, if you built a fantastic product, customers will come to you.
Actually, so Amrish has done such an incredible job of evolving this company. Company always had phenomenal products, strong moat, solid business, product market fit. So I mean, the PMF type of characteristics were rock solid, but this is a very low-key company. Did no marketing. It was in stealth for 4 or 5 years. Never did any marketing or PR. Like Lokvir's persona and PR were like not made for each other. Yeah. Okay, never ever any PR. Yeah. And just kept building relatively very quietly.
Again, Shailendra, this is another very interesting topic to touch upon. What I just want to share is that don't ever go to the extremes, which says don't be the person who is on every panel in every opportunity and talking about random stuff. But on the other end of it, I also believe that don't be this person, who's hiding in a hole, which is not explaining the thinking. Just because our most visible product in the market was the POS machine, everybody used to say, oh, Pine Labs, what does Pine Labs do? Oh, it's a POS company. There was an effort that we made to try and tell everybody, saying, no, Pine Labs is much beyond a POS. We do so many different services. So in the first 1 year, we went out and actually tried to do a reset on who Pine Labs is. But as soon as that reset was done, we then started to pull back and said, now we don't need to go and tell everybody what a Pine Labs is. Let others talk about who we are and what we do, and let there be a little bit of a mystery around what we are building and how we are taking this forward.
So the Pine Labs journey with Amrish has been amazing. Now, Amrish is also, by the way, a very prolific angel investor. If I can embarrass you, Amrish, how many angel investments have you made? Ballpark. Maybe you don't want to give the number, but ballpark.
I think about 70.
How has that journey been? So you've seen lots of companies at early stages, right? So what has been things that have stood out as an, now put on the lens of being the angel and mentor to so many founders? Tell us about life as an angel investor and what stands out for you.
Yeah. I think, again, it goes back to the same principle, right? Which is if the founder and the team is solving for a certain business problem, solving for a mission, and is consumed by that mission, then it becomes fairly clear that this is where you want to go and back that founder. So 2 or 3 things on that one, Shailendra. One is this whole concept around all-in. So if you're not consumed with the idea, and if you're not thinking about it day in, day out, I'm not so convinced that you're going to create a big company. Considering you want to go all in, you got to solve a few things, right? Solve for the family, solve for friends. Those days, don't fight with anyone. Be nice with your spouses. Be nice with your friends. Be nice with your parents if you have a loan on your head. Do not fight when you're building a startup, right? Don't be that individual who's like, oh, I'm going to be the Steve Jobs. Be nice with everybody when you're building a startup. The other piece which I talk about worked very well for me is that be light on your financials. One of the things I advise that don't have too much of a loan on your head, because it starts to affect your thinking and what you're trying to deliver. The last piece to it is while you have VCs and while you have obligations to the VCs, the founders that I like the most are the ones who work hard on their co-founders. Again, it's never easy with co-founders. You always have accidents with co-founders, but you have to work very hard with your co-founders, but also work very hard with your team. You will always have people who will be just completely different, weird, just not you. But those founders who make the effort to bring in different kinds of co-founders, different kind of employees within their organization, I think for me those stand out. And I said, okay, this is a great team. I want to back that team. Just some of the things which I try and look for when I invest behind that individual.
We haven't talked about this, but he's really built a world-class team at Pine Labs. So the last 2-3 years, taken old people along who were there for a long time, brought on a lot of new people, and being able to assimilate them in a nice manner, which is very rare and not easy to find.
We talk about the whole concept about building a team and having a team spirit. What does team and team spirit mean, right? The team and team spirit really means that do you enjoy hanging out with each other? So the softer part is that hanging out as a team and being able to communicate with each other, have a beer, have deep conversations is super important for team spirit to get built. If you look at the world-class teams, you will always see that these teams are not full of individuals. These team is full of those people who are connected to each other. Maybe it's connected on a mission, maybe it's connected at a very personal level, but it's very important to feel happy in each other's company. We spend so much time in office. We should just learn to be happy with each other. Let me tell you the other extreme of it. So, the other day there was this, we had, as I said, we acquired this company, and that founder came in and sat in the room for a review which we were doing. The CFO was there, one of CFO's team members, myself, and we were there. I set the ground rule. I said, I just want you to know, when you leave from this room, you will be extremely unhappy. You'll be extremely uncomfortable. You will be pissed off as hell. But we all are. I mean, then there is nothing that we can do about it. We all are pissed off at all times. We are unhappy with where we are headed. We are feeling unsatisfied with our day. I think that's also an equally important piece in a founder's journey. In a founder's journey, what's going to happen is you will realize that the uncomfortable feeling that you have, or the unsatisfied feeling that you have today, let me break this news to you. You're going to feel exactly the same 5 years later. You'll feel exactly the same 10 years later. The incomplete day which you feel now actually never goes away. It remains with you for all your life.
Actually, double click on that. Why is this unsatisfied feeling?
Like Roger Federer. Roger Federer has 20 titles, 21 titles to Nadal and 21 titles or 22 titles for Djokovic. How does that happen? That happens because what these individuals are saying is, okay, I've won this Grand Slam, but I've just realized there are these 2 strokes which I can improve on and which I'm still not playing well. Or I realize saying there is that one competitor who I still haven't taken down. I still need to take that competitor down. That is what drives them. That is what inspires them. That is what drives them to go and compete once again in the next Grand Slam and win that next Grand Slam. Same thing happens with us in our founder's journey, right? Every day you feel, oh, I finished so many good things. There are so many bad things which I need to solve for. And that incomplete feeling never goes away from you while you're building. What it does is, it will make you question your own self, saying that, is this just too difficult? Is it all worth it? Why am I doing this? And invariably, when you look into your boat, you'll always find the leaky holes in your boat. You say, and then, somebody will come in and say, no, you got to look further ahead. When you look further ahead, you see sharks. You say, oh, damn. Now what I'm supposed to do? What I have realized out of my citrus journey was, I think it's very important to look really far ahead. Really far ahead. I think some of the economies that we are operating in, with the kind of young population that exists out there, the per capita GDP is continuing to rise. When you fast forward these economies 10 years from today, you will get to see a completely different picture. The more you spend time with your VC friends, with your founder friends, you'll realize that 10 years later, the horizon is looking completely different. So one of the things which I'll tell you is that on those dark days where you start to question yourself, start to question your product, wonder when is that PMF going to arrive, work hard to look really far out, and don't focus on those leaky holes in your boat. Super important. As I said, got to work both extremes of it, right? Build a team that you're happy with, and then obviously, when they say stay foolish, stay hungry, basically what they're saying is stay unsatisfied.
Because you're going to want to keep raising the bar on yourself. I do think a lot of people resonate with this feeling.
Yeah, I mean, the best of the founders in India, at least the ones which I know, you talk to them, they will always tell you the same thing, saying, man, I'm unsatisfied with this. And these are founders, unicorn founders, IPO founders, all of them will have this streak of being unsatisfied. and aspiring for something bigger and trying to solve for something much more complex at all points of time. I'm saying it's just natural. It's just natural for all of that to come through.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you, Amrish. Thank you very much.
You've been listening to Pine Lab's Amrish Rau in conversation with Peak 15's Shailendra Singh. For more interesting startup stories, visit our website peak15.com or follow us on your favorite podcast platform.